The Darktide beta has been over with for about a week now, and oh, what a showcase it was. We got to see and feel the polish the game devs are putting on this game, and for me it left no doubt that Fact Shark is making a game that will be highly enjoyable. That being said, I wanted to highlight some basic gameplay changes we see from Vermintide 2 to Darktide, so I'll be giving 7 basic gameplay tips to get you started with this exciting new entry into the Warhammer 40k universe. Tip 1. Infinite Sprint. You can indefinitely sprint in Darktide. While you still have a stamina bar, that is for your energy to block and push back enemies. Sprinting does drain your stamina, so if you sprint for any amount of time, the next enemies you come upon will have the advantage on you. Proper spacing or well-placed shots can quickly eliminate the threat. I would say unless you are desperately trying to get away from danger, do not sprint during horde waves. Losing your ability to block and stagger enemies will quickly lead to you losing chunks of your health on these weaker enemies only because you got in a rush. Tip 2. Dodging and sliding. There are 2 ways to dodge damage. The first is for melee, which is just your standard directional choice and spacebar. This will dodge you left, right, or back depending on what you choose. Now you can't be doing this all willy-nilly. Time it correctly so when you see an enemy swinging their arms back, go ahead and dodge. Doing this too soon will lead to the enemy tracking your position. Now you can dodge range shots, but I found it to be very unreliable compared to sliding in between cover. Sliding is a bit more difficult and dangerous as you have to briefly get into a sprint and then crouch. I really didn't use this mechanic that much in the game, and didn't realize how much I actually could have avoided when it came to ranged enemies. Dodging is a good baseline, but sliding has to have a lot more situational awareness. Typically, if you have a lot of ranged fire come down at you, you'll be able to slide to reposition without taking a lot of damage as compared to trying to regularly dodge it. While sliding in groups of melee hordes is just going to get you smacked on the noggin repeatedly. Tip 3. Push attack. If you played the tutorial or Vermintide 2, you'll know this tip, but for those who are very fresh, you can push your enemies and then hold the attack button to follow up with a quick attack, giving you guaranteed damage and even enough time for another attack before the enemy comes back up. If you're in a large group of enemies, the push attack is perfect for chipping away at all this heresy and still giving you time to distance yourself. As much as you can, you want to be avoiding damage, so doing a push attack and then dodging back can create so much needed spacing to refocus on what you need. While spamming the attack button is incredibly satisfying, no, downright glorious as you smite your foes, it's not all that practical. Observe the situation and go from there. Tip 4. Heavy armor. Heavily armored enemies are a menace in this game. Besides some well-placed headshots, it is incredibly dangerous to get up close and personal with enemies that have armor. Either just blatantly ignore your attacks, or they can just take plenty of body shots before going down. Headshots and heavy attacks are your best friend in that regard. Piercing special attacks also come in handy, but that's more weapon reliant than just a general tip. Enemies like the Scab Mauler are terrifying to go up against, especially when they spawn in waves. Just 2 of these guys can down you faster than you have time for your daily prayers to the Emperor, so be careful in these situations. There are even light guardsman units that have armor and can take up a lot more body damage before going down. Thankfully, really only the elites are the ones who can stand headshots. The Mobian 6 guardsmen go down easy enough with 1 las rifle shot to the head. If you are forced to fight up close and personal, focus on heavy attacks and aim for the head, as you can still headshot with melee weapons as well. Heavy attacks will briefly stagger the armored enemies, giving you enough time to assess the situation and proceed with the safest option. You can also push attack enemies, but even some of the heavier units won't be remotely fazed by this. So in these situations I focus on doing a heavy attack, as heavy attacks will pierce through the armor at the same time. Tip 5. Cohesion. Temporary health was a mechanic that was in Vermintide 2, basically giving you free health while you staggered enemies or activated certain skills. This game's version is your Overshields or toughness. The stronger your toughness, the stronger that blue Overshield is before it finally breaks. Normally you'd have to stagger enemies, use abilities, or do something specific for something like this, but Darktide makes it significantly easier. Just being around your team gets you a cohesion bonus and whatever else passive stats your team has taken to buff you while nearby. Darktide is generally harder than Vermintide, so you have to take full advantage if you plan on surviving in Tertium. You gain cohesion bonuses by just simply being nearby. It's not necessarily line of sight, as going through doors or upstairs still gives you the bonus. For each teammate nearby, the bonus is stacked faster, and as a baseline, your toughness shield passively recharges with more players nearby. There are other ways to get this overshield stack faster, like killing enemies in melee combat, but that comes with a lot of risk. Simply being nearby arguably keeps you safer and is significantly easier to do than testing your metal against the unclean. Tip 6. Overshields break easily. So even though you can get your toughness back very easy, they can be broken just as fast. Ranged weapons, heavy attacks, plasma pistols, and so much more can just blitz through your first line of defense. Plasma weapons completely drain your shields in one shot. Same with snipers, maulers, and so much more. Overshields protect you, but really they should just wake you up. You've got to be relying on dodging and sliding these attacks more than just trusting yourself to tank through it. Even on the lowest difficulty, the baseline range unit's las rifles can tear shields in seconds. Just keep that in mind as you progress against the tides of chaos. Alright, final tip, tip 7, special ability knockbacks. This is for the Vermintide 2 players, but not every special ability or ultimate knocks enemies back. In Vermintide 2, you could use this to create some space and then unleash your ultimate against your foes. In this, classes like the Guardsmen get more damage, but if they are positioned wrong, then you aren't going anywhere or doing anything fast. Getting hit ruins your ability to aim properly and thus completely waste your ult's time as it's up. Other classes can blast back the enemy, or the Augur can simply just run through and stagger the entire horde. With this tip being so class dependent, just look at what each of your abilities do. If it doesn't specifically say staggers enemy, then it's a good chance you need some space before using your ult. Anyway, thanks for watching, subscribe to keep up to date with more Warhammer news, I'll see y'all in the next video.